Our whole existence as a future church plant is born out of this value of multiplication.
Multiplication isn't just a lot of addition. Multiplication's quantitatively different, not just simply qualitatively different.
Multiplication contra just simple addition is always, I think, the goal. It's a higher goal.
I think that churches need to take multiplication and church planning and multiplication of leadership more seriously, simply, I think, because the culture is becoming more and more diverse.
I think it's going to be really important for the central church model to change from a celebrity pastor and faithful followers to a full community of people that are involved in collective ministry.
I think no matter what you're doing, whether it's an organization like Microsoft or whether you're in the military, you're always trying to find not someone who's just going to be a number or add to the size of a group, but somebody that you can actually pass on leadership to and is going to be able to then reproduce it himself.
A large part of putting that whole gospel piece together for us was realizing that through the gospel is this idea of reproduction.
I think Antioch Church, the original one, modern-day Turkey, really picked up on that it's not just about us, it's about the rest of the world as well.
In the book of Acts, we just saw this value of multiplication. Multiplication of churches on a larger level.
There's not a one-size-fits-all mentality for reaching a group of people. In some ways, if you were to look at the United States or North America and think, wow, there's a culture that's full of Christians or people that like to go to a church, then you might approach it one way and say, let's just put together a building and services and programs and invite everybody to come to it. But we're not in that culture anymore. That culture is changing.
We're realizing if we're going to engage culture or our communities, that we can't think like one big group anymore. Gideon didn't win because they put all their lamps in one big light. They were spread out.
We're trying to break that down inside the church as well, not just multiplying churches, but also multiplying people within the church, multiplying people who are gifted, mobilizing them into using their gifts, definitely multiplying leadership.
The mindset has to be multiply, not divide. That so many times pastors and leaders think if 200 people leave or 50 people or 20 people leave to go plant a church, it's dividing us, instead of realizing, no, it's multiplying you.
Sometimes we think that if I can do me 25 times, I must have had to multiply, rather than the idea that when Jesus says a seed has to die in order for another one to grow, it's really, you get to kind of look at, here are the things I like, and I'm going to have to equip people to do that. And that's, to me, the difference between multiplication and addition. Addition is when I enroll a lot of people in my agenda, but I still get to lead the charge. Multiplication is when I start to say, you know what, I've got a lot of leaders now. And so we're going to be on a lot of different fronts.
Whether that's a ministry team that is bringing up people that don't know how to work in children's ministry, but they're training them, or us embedding, like paying for a church planter to live and be on staff at Imago so we could send them out and train them up to plant more churches. That through the whole process, hopefully, when we're doing it right, there's this DNA of reproduction that goes throughout the church. Reproducing churches, leaders reproducing leaders, and hopefully disciples reproducing disciples.
Would Silas have ever become a church leader if Paul wasn't out on the road planting new churches, reaching new people?
People are not finding always their first knee-jerk reaction to a need for God, and the answer being, I need to go to church. Many of them are saying, I need to go take a climb in a mountain, or I need to go hang out with some friends at a coffee shop, or I need to just have a book reading club where we can talk about what we believe over a book. And if you don't start training up and developing leaders who can be missionaries in that context, you're going to lose your impact in the culture that is forming and evolving and changing all the time.
We have to be willing to release people to the flank. We have to be willing to send out reserves from our own. We have to be willing to give away the best of what we've got.
Being involved in coaching and training and surfacing, assessing, and finding those people who feel like, man, I think God's put this thing on my heart, that I have to go do it.
As soon as you raise up a church planter or a leader who's going to lead another kind of mission in a community, they've got to ask all the questions. What's the culture I find myself in? How do I translate the needs of the culture? How does the gospel make sense to this people group? And every time you do that with another person, you have another translation or another interpretation of culture that's always changing.
One thing about multiplication that excites me in regards to church planting is simply that you're able to put men in the game that are waiting in the wings.
We're going to be a church that's sent and sending and planting.
To be an expression of the gospel is to display what God is like in all things. Then we must be about multiplication. Otherwise, we are fundamentally not displaying who God is as the one who gives birth or creation or new life. And if there's no new life and there's no multiplication in our churches, we're cutting out a big portion of who God is.